Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a wild game to share with you from round 4 of the 2025 US Chess Championship. On the white end, Sam Shankland playing against Hans Niemann. Alright, this was played October 15th. On board, Nimzo-Indian Defense. Let's get a few healthy moves in out of this opening phase. Pawn in the center, tension resolved. Good bishop, questioned, preserved. Queen c2, knight a6. From here, knight f3 is played. Now, in the case of bishop captures knight, that would be the good bishop being exchanged for a knight. Black has double isolated pawns, but as compensation, has the bishop pair. Also has control over b5, stability for the dark square bishop. An open line for the rook. There is a square that comes to mind with this structure, this capture away from the center. c5 is on my radar here. A knight can drift in, but it's kind of like, so what? Its every forward move is under control conveniently by the bishop. Things are cool here for black. Computer prefers black. All right, we don't see the capture on a6. The knight on a6 is there to support c5 in the case of a capture. Nice recapture, targeting the bishop. Another detail, if the knight goes to d7, once more, you are supporting c5. There is a key difference between these two posts for the knight. d7, a6. If the knight is on d7, knight b5 is there, and this knight will successfully hunt the dark square bishop now, due to the pressure on c7 and d6. Note, after knight a6, if knight b5 is played here, you can back the bishop off. Knight controls c7. Okay, in the game we have knight f3, c5, castles, c4, invasive pawn with tempo, bishop e2, knight c7. The knight is in a spot to support b5. From here we have a4. Now, if this invasive pawn is challenged straight away, with b3, b5 is there. B takes c, b takes c. The invasive pawn is maintained. Note in this position, a4 is not a good move. Trying to undermine black's pawn chain, strike at the base. b4 would be there. The knight moves, c3 is there. That's already a winning position for black. Too strong a pawn. Passed pawn, a connected pawn there on c3. So, white first says, let me interfere with b5. From here, black goes with knight a6. Looking at that newly weakened b4 square. It's now a hole after a4. Note in this position, if black tries a6, instinctually, the first move I think about here when I see a6 is a4. This clamp down on b6. This would not be the top reply to a6. If a6 is met with a5 here, knight b5 would be available. These knights will be removed. This knight could then hop in, bishop f5. Things come together really well there for black's minor pieces. What white should play in the case of a6 in this position is b3 straight away, knowing that b5 is not a good way to support this pawn, because white can take on b5, and after the recapture, this is the moment this knight is now overloaded. And that's a sign that something is going to go wrong here for you. It can be exploited. Rook takes rook, knight takes rook, b5 falls in the end. Okay, what we have here, after a4, knight a6, only now is c4 challenged, b3, knight b4, queen b1, pawn takes pawn, queen takes pawn, and from here bishop f5 is played. another move the computer is attracted to, a5, gluing in that knight. Downside is that you weaken the b5 square. Knight bishop can easily jump there. Okay, black goes with bishop f5, coordination with the knight and bishop on a couple light squares. a5, rook c8, and from here bishop d2 is played. Now, in the case of knight b5, how to handle this pesky knight? Targeting the bishop, targeting the pawn, the bishop has a responsibility. Here's how the computer wants to run it. It says question the queen. She would have two options. If she goes to b2, there's knight d3. If queen a2, we could see some repetition there, possibly. Also, if queen a2 in this position, now you are in a spot, now that the knight is on d3 rather than b4, you are in a spot to meet queen a2 with bishop b8 covering a7. Also, if bishop c2 in this variation is met with queen a3, this is where it wants to now improve the knight, and it says be prepared to live without the dark square bishop. Note, in this position here, there isn't a way to hammer away at this knight. Bishop d2 covered, rook b1 covered. Okay. We do not see in this game knight b5. Bishop d2 it is. a6. Pop quiz, how would you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, computer doesn't like a6. It says best is bishop c2. Okay, we have a6 in this game. And I believe the main point behind a6 is to cover b5. Rule out knight b5 move, targeting the bishop, unleashing the dark square bishop here. White's play is with g3. This is not best. What is best? This was a huge moment in the game, I gotta say. What was best is knight b5. Now, why is this such a huge moment? Well, just think of it from a psychological standpoint. You're playing a6 primarily to keep the knight out of b5, yet the best move is dropping the knight still into b5. There was a move that was clearly missed here. Let's check this line out. If knight b5 was played, here's the top variation. Knight c2, knight captures bishop, and after knight captures rook, you're on the queen. In this position, it says, don't take the knight back. Swipe the b7 pawn. There is a fork here, and if rook c7, queen captures a6, you're on the knight, defending the knight. You're still on the bishop, you're still on the knight. In the case of queen captures knight, there is still no capture of the knight. Top here is bishop b4 with a skewer. This is a huge pawn to drop. Nearby a6 is falling in plenty of lines, and then there would be a very dangerous passed a pawn for white. I took it out a little bit more here. We could see a queenless position where white is basically winning. In the case of king captures bishop, there's rook captures knight finally. The second pawn is ready to be won. In order to save it, the rook has to go completely passive. This is a completely winning position for white. It points out the best line here is with knight b3, preserve the bishop, trade a pawns, and play that position where white is up a healthy pawn and has that bishop pair. Okay, this was a missed opportunity here for Team White. Meeting a6, covering b5 by dropping into that square anyway. All right, in this game we have g3 producing a flight square. In a way, saying if you want to maybe take advantage of that h3 square, you're just encouraging my rook to a better square, and you're no longer coordinated with the knight on these light squares. Black doesn't play in this way. What we have here, development, Rook's connected. Security for the knight. More security. Rook on f to c1. Rook c7. Knight e5. Double up the rooks. Queen b2. Another pop quiz. What is your move here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, rather than queen b2, computer wanted bishop d1 covering c2. After queen b2, we now have knight c2. Now what? The response is rook captures knight. Black's going to win material from here. If this rook moves in this position, b1, a2, a4 in all cases, bishop a3 is there. You have the support for a skewer. What we have here is rook captures knight, bishop captures rook, and from here white looks to stir up trouble, knight g4. Here's the thing. If white simply recaptures the bishop, the top response is bishop b4 to hit the c3 knight. And there isn't a great way to release the pressure there. Black's going to be crashing through on this point soon enough. There is a significant difference between knight e4 and bishop b4 in this position. Both put pressure on the knight. Initially, I was thinking the knight dives in here. That's not best. Let me show you why. In response to knight e4, there is this slick retreat move to c4, and now what? If pawn takes knight, knight takes knight, queen takes knight, white is winning that. Two minor pieces outweighing the rook. If this knight first tries to trade itself off with knight captures bishop, there's knight captures pawn with a fork, knight captures rook to follow. And in the case of knight captures knight, removing the pressure on this pawn, it says recapture with the bishop. Best from here is to trade away with pieces on c4. Here's the thing. If you take with the pawn, it prefers white here. Bishop pair, very strong center, passed pawn, rook b1. The c pawn is interfering with these rooks. They look clumsy. The b pawn here for black doesn't really even exist. Beautiful coordination. Computer prefers white. Okay. White in this game does not collect the bishop. It's knight g4, trying to undermine black's defense of d5. Bishop preserved, defends here over d5, knight captures knight, and in the game we have pawn captures knight, so this is certainly an eye-opener. Why with the pawn? The queen, I believe at least, wants to stay trained on this e3 point, sort of anticipating that this bishop can be kicked shortly. And if it retreats, okay, knight captures d5 to follow with that big fork. We have pawn takes. Now, okay, queen stays trained here. Also, there is a flight square with the king. Computer says you can take with the queen here. And there's a really neat tactic available to black. If white tries here, f3. If f3 in this position with the queen doing the recapturing on f6, you don't take on f3. If you take on f3, you end up in a pin. What black has here is queen g5, striking e3 from a different angle, preparing to meet pawn takes bishop with rook captures knight. Bishop takes rook, queen takes e3. That's a decisive continuation for black. All right, black in this game takes with the pawn. Queen trained on e3. Follow-up from here is bishop g4. If f3 here, it points out bishop b4 as a strong move. Let me show you what this looks like. Bishop b4. And if knight captures bishop, you have bishop captures bishop, If you want to save the knight, recapturing here on d2, we see e3 collapse with check. Follow up, rook c2, clearly disaster. Rook's invading on the second rank. Material will be won back shortly, winning for black. So don't try to give this bishop a kick. e3 will be exploited. We have bishop g4 f5, bishop back, this bishop now all in. On the forward, no retreats. This may still be in the air in some cases. Follow up h5. Bishop captures pawn. We could revisit f3 here. There's that same trick available. Bishop going after the knight. Okay. We have in this game, after h5, bishop captures pawn, king steps up. Black's idea here, try and do something on this king side. Two bishops. And now, an open line towards the white king. The bishop falls back here to d1. If f3 in this position, with the bishop on h5, queen g5 is strong. The bishop short on squares. Bishop d1 in this game, rook h8, and from here h4 is played. Now, watch how careful you have to be here as white. If let's say this rook played to c1, open file, you're finally doing something, rather than staring at a pawn. There would be rook captures knight here, and pick your favorite way to capture. Let's say you go with the rook. There's this shot on h2 with the idea king captures rook, queen h4 check. There's a pin there. Next up, queen h1 mate. These tricks are now in the air. An attack is clearly brewing here for Niemann on the king side. We have h4, rook c6, rook lift, ready to enter in on the attack. Nearly everything is attacking the white king, who doesn't have a single kingside defensive piece. Okay, follow up is knight captures bishop, take towards the center, rook b8, and now let me throw this position to as a pop quiz. What move would you play here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, black is winning here, but he does not find this top move. Very difficult to find this top move. It's pointing out bishop captures g3 is best. There's some deep line involved with this. The move in the game is rook captures h5. We'll see how that plays out shortly. This was considered top. To take on g3, and then play rook g6, major piece, specific attack. And a point or two from here is that if this pawn is defended next with the king, you could still capture it. And then follow up with queen captures pawn. The queen and rook will soon deliver mate now, like 4 or 5 from there. The other detail is that if this pawn is defended with the bishop, this pawn here is pinned. You could swipe the h4 pawn. But what makes this line very tricky, what makes spotting this sacrifice initially on g3 difficult, is that after queen g2, it's kind of like, okay, what's the winning way from here? It's pointing out queen g5, targeting this pawn. Next up, rook h6. Give this pawn up. Queen f5, not the cleanest looking variation to be sure. With this last move, you ready for it? It's setting up two ideas. One is to land a check on h1, go for the 2 rooks versus queen trade, and then swipe the bishop in the end. Let's say this bishop is covered. Here's the other detail. Yeah, triple trouble here on the h-file. Not at all a clear continuation. That is for sure. Okay, Niemann's try in this game at this stage right here is a rook sacrifice. Rook captures h4, pawn captures rook, queen captures pawn, and from here the king makes a run for it. Important to play in this way. If queen captures b, there would be queen h3 saying not so fast, you will not run. And if you pick up my rook, we would have a very familiar checkmate in 4 pattern, kicking off with bishop h2 check, bishop g3 discovered check, queen h2 to f2 for checkmate. Okay. The king, after the queen recaptures here on h4, the king makes a run for it. King f1. Another pop quiz, what is your move here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, at the top, the move in the game, bishop g3. Hammering away at f2. White's play is bishop e1. This is an only move. White is still in the game. This is still considered holdable. But man, is it difficult. A ton of pressure here on the white king. Here's the problem with capturing the bishop. There's a check. Only 2 moves for the king. And in both cases, the rook goes to the f-file. Now there's a mate in 1 threat. White would have to move the bishops here to delay mate for just a move. So what does this look like? Let's say the light square bishop moves somewhere on this diagonal. There would be queen f3 check and queen f1 mate. And if the dark square bishop moves, check and mate. So my point is that after bishop captures g3, the bishop is poisoned. Bishop e1, rook f6, queen c2, check, king e2, queen g2, king d2, bishop captures pawn, can't take back, rook is recapturing, the queen is going to fall. Bishop e2, another pop quiz, what's your move here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, top move in the game, bishop captures e3. White's response is king d1. If king captures bishop, queen g5 is checkmate. If king c3, you drop the queen. King d1, only move. Queen g1, working on a pin. White from here blunders, plays queen c8, looking forward to an exchange here, getting the queens off. Best was rook captures b7. If bishop f2, the queen is around to secure the pinned bishop. Okay, the queen goes to c8 here. And black doesn't find the best move here. Another pop quiz, what's your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, Niemann falls back with the bishop to g5. 2 things. Prevent queen g4 with check, getting the queens off. And with this retreat, queen captures d4 check is in the air. The computer says top is to fire away at this pinned bishop. It wants to play bishop f2, allowing the queen exchange. So let me show you what this looks like. If white goes in for the queen exchange, you block with the rook. And if there's a queen exchange, you recapture with the rook, you're still hammering away at the pinned bishop. And if the king gets out of the way, trying to secure this point, that's where the e-pawn says I can play a role as well. There's e3 check, and white is officially kicked from defending the bishop. Also note, you could go in for an opposite color bishop position here and still be winning. This is a win. It might look something like this. It says that black is winning here. 3 passed pawns, opposite color bishop ending. Anyhow, how Niemann plays it, rather than bishop f2, it's bishop g5, rook captures b7, bishop h4, queens come off, black hammers away at the pinned bishop, Bishop e6, working on a pin. Rook captures bishop, another pop quiz. What is your move? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, this is still considered holdable for white. 2 legal moves. White picks the wrong one. Goes to c2 in the game. We'll see the winning method from there. After king c2, this rook is able to establish itself on this very strong second rank. Here's the better move. Now, in the case of this check, it says step up. Things are fine here for white. There's 2 problems for black. If f7 is covered, you don't take the pawn because the rook would return and then swipe the bishop next. In the case of rook f1 here, you collect a pawn. It says that that is a draw. Okay. We have in this game king c2, rook e2 check, king d1, rook f2, f7 covered, bishop captures d5, the e pawn runs. Bishop c4 holding up its advance. Notice the bishop is supporting that promotion square. We'll see that this is very relevant. We now have a check, king c1, and you could advance straight away. e2. What do you do now? King captures rook, you promote. What we have first is rook captures pawn check, king g6, bishop captures pawn, rook captures bishop. If you can remove this pawn, it'll be a draw. But there's no guarantee you get that pawn. You're not in a position to do that. White tries a little bit from here. Let's see what this looks like. Attack, defense, attacking the rook, stays trained on the pawn, and we just improve our pieces. Rook was under fire there. Let's get the king involved. And there's really not too many tricks left for white here. I mean, how do you interfere with this rook's defense of the pawn? King can't approach it. This is not a safe square. So the rook's getting in a position to land a check or two, ready to hunt a pawn. From here, a check, king f3. Offering a rook exchange, pop quiz. How would you respond here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, can you successfully exchange rooks here and hold a draw? You can't, because black has the correct color bishop in the end. Once you swipe these 2 white pawns, that will be a win. If you had a light square bishop and there were no rooks here, put the king in the corner and that will be a draw. Black has the correct color bishop, so a rook exchange is not going to be helpful for white. Rooks stay on board, rook g1. Follow up here is king c5. If bishop captures pawn, there's a check, swipe the pawn, or even a skewer idea to track down the pawn. In both cases, that would be a draw. Black, well aware of these ideas, moves the king towards these a pawns. Pawn advances, gets the rook behind the pawn, still not biting, not allowing this trick. No thanks. Rook d4, rook check, and after king b5, white resigns. Next up, both pawns are going to fall, and there's no hope there. Holding that, black up a bishop and past a pawn, completely winning here for black. What a wild game this one was. Beautiful kingside attack there by Niemann. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comment section below. Hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care. Bye.